Okay, this is final session today on marriage. Um, Again, marriage, kind of like raising children, I mean, can be just a wonderful experience, and some of us are committed to marriage, and yet we go through separations or divorce, and yet we because we're committed, we find somebody in the future, or we don't. But marriage is complicated, to say the least, and I'm no authority. But I do family counseling and marriage counseling for a lot of years, and so these are some of the things that I've noticed. One of the names, John Gottman, he's a very good resource, Gottman, and if you research him, you'll find a lot of things, a lot of truths, a lot of good principles that will help. So anyway, there's 4 common things that interfere with marriage. He calls them the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse of marriage. Sounds horrible, doesn't it? You've probably heard of these before, but he says the number one thing that gets in the way is criticism of the person instead of the action. Notice there's a big difference between the two. So if I criticize my wife, it's totally different from me criticizing an event or an action. Okay, so making that distinction is going to be really important in your marriage. So when you want to criticize, the event or the situation. That will help. Not that criticism really helps too much anyway, but but that's the one barrier. He says we start to criticize the person instead of the event. Number 2 is contempt, and what he means by that is sarcasm, eye-rolling, hostile humor. Sarcasm could be, humor and sarcasm are really 2 different things, and they're really manifest by the intent of the person that's giving them. Then there's defensiveness, and so if I get too defensive, if my wife tells me about a behavior that I'm doing, then all of a sudden I flip it and say it's actually you, not me. That's defensiveness in this way. The next one is stonewalling, and that's kind of the telltale sign that things are really bad, because basically I just tune out. I've tuned out, and that's when a person starts to make decisions like, I live a parallel life, and so my wife's here, I'm here, but we have 2 separate, very distinct parallel lives. We're not really making decisions together anymore. So there's some activities, and there's a lot of work. I often say, when a couple comes to me, I say, look, this is you guys. If you're going to make it through this, you're going to have to work really, really hard. It's not just a session thing. So there's things like, they used to say do I language, and I'm not saying it's bad, but they used to say, I feel that. Well, it's unnatural. One of the techniques that people are using more and more is just be curious. Now, curious in a genuine, heartfelt way. You come home from work, you and your wife are together. Hey, honey, I'm just wondering how things went today. Well, how was that for you? How did that work for you? Oh, okay. And what did you do next? I just want to know. That's going to get you more mileage than just about any kind of feel-good relationship type of thing that there is. Because if you think of it, how curious were you about your fiance when you were first getting together? You were all kinds of curious. You wanted to know about your dreams. What are your hopes? What are your challenges? Oh, what happened when you were a kid? When did this happen? Sometimes we kind of start losing that. So if we can be curious, and at first things like that can be mechanical and seem mechanical when we're first trying, but you got to give each other that space. got to give each other space to be a little mechanical until things seem a little more natural, and that's okay. So that's the principle I'm going to leave. There's all kinds of principles that Dr. Gottman talks about. I would, if I were you and you're wanting to improve things, or maybe you're in trouble, look those principles up. They're really, really good. And I think that's where we'll leave this segment.